I want to start with a story that at the time didn't seem connected to any of this at all. Several years ago, back around 2011, I bought my first house. I remember getting the keys and just feeling so excited because it felt like this huge milestone. I'd worked so hard for it. I already had the ideas for everything was going to go, how I wanted it decorated, what this season of life was supposed to feel like. And on paper, it made complete sense. I had checked all the boxes, it was practical, people were excited for me, and I kept telling myself, this is exactly what I wanted. But a few weeks after moving in, I remember sitting there one night and realizing that something felt wrong, and I just couldn't quite explain it. There was nothing actually bad about the house, which almost made the feeling harder to justify. I just had this deep sense that I wasn't fully at home there. And I remember even feeling guilty admitting that to myself because I thought that I should have been grateful. And I kept thinking, maybe I just needed more time to settle in. But eventually I realized that I'd spent so much time thinking about what made sense and what looked right from the outside that I had never really stopped to ask myself what actually felt right for me. And I think a lot of women are living some version of that feeling right now. Maybe not with the house, but with the pace of your life or the role that you've been playing, or this realization that you have become disconnected from yourself while still managing to keep everything around you moving. Because from the outside, your life probably looks completely fine. You're showing up, you're getting things done, you're answering the texts, managing the schedule of making dinner, following through on responsibilities. And people around you probably think that you're handling everything so well, maybe even asking, how does she do it all? But then you get to the end of the day and you realize that you've barely experienced any of it while it was happening. Your body moves through the day, but your mind was always somewhere else, always on to the next thing, mentally rehearsing tomorrow, trying to stay ahead of everything that still needs you. And sometimes I think that's the hardest kind of exhaustion to explain because there's no obvious reason attached to it. You just feel off, a little disconnected from yourself, maybe a little bit numb, overstretched in ways that are just hard to put into words. And so if that resonates with you, I would genuinely love to hear about it because I think a lot more women feel this way than we talk about openly, especially the women that everyone depends on. The capable women, the ones who are reliable, those of us who hold everything together so consistently that eventually nobody even checks in on them anymore because everyone assumes that they're fine. I've had seasons in my own life where I realized that I was spending more time managing my life than actually living it. And what I've learned is that this feeling usually doesn't shift because we force ourselves to push harder or think more positively. It starts shifting when we begin paying attention again. And I'm not talking about some dramatic life altering shift, but those small, honest moments throughout the day when we catch our mind wandering, we catch ourselves not fully embodying our body in the moment that we're in. And so, that, my friend, is what I really want to talk to you about in today's episode of Radiantly Rooted. Now, one of the first things that I notice from the women who come to work with me and the women in my classes is how physically tense so many of us are, and oftentimes how we don't even realize it. I can't tell you how many students have come to me and said, Rachel, I really don't know how to relax. Our shoulders are tight, our jaws are clenched, and we're breathing shallowly or holding our breath. We move through the day in this low grade state of bracing or clenching, tightening up, because there's always something else that needs our attention. And don't get me wrong, I still catch myself doing it too. And one of the simplest ways that I found to reconnect with myself during those moments is through my breath. Now, in yoga, we talk about prana, which is your life force energy. It's the energy that helps you to feel more grounded and connected and present inside of your own life. And the more I've studied yoga, the more I've realized how many of us are living in this constant state of giving our energy outward without replenishing it, without refilling our own cups. We give our energy into work, into caregiving, into schedules and responsibilities and emotional labor. But at some point, your body starts responding to that. And so one of the practices that I come back to often is incredibly simple, and it's connecting to our breath. When we notice that our mind has wandered, when we notice that we're not mentally present in our physical body, when we notice ourselves clenching, we can come to our breath. And this is one where we extend the exhale just a bit longer than the inhale. So you might breathe in for 4 counts and then breathe out for 6 or 8. And the longer breath out, the longer exhale helps to tell your body that it's safe. And sometimes that small shift is enough to interrupt the constant feeling of rushing and tightening up. I do this in the car before walking into class sometimes to ground myself. I'll do it standing in the kitchen while the coffee brews or after a long day when I catch myself carrying this tension that I haven't even acknowledged yet. And usually the shift isn't anything dramatic. I just notice myself soften a little bit. My shoulders drop, my chest can loosen, but I feel more present again instead of feeling like I'm mentally sprinting through the next 5 hours of my life. And I know that this might sound small, but those moments matter than we realize. So let's try it together now. We'll do just 2 rounds. So go ahead and empty your breath and then inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can return to your natural breath if you want to, but just notice you might feel a little more grounded, a little more connected, a little less tense. Inside radiantly rooted, breath work becomes something that we actually integrate into daily life instead of something that we only do on the mat on occasion, right? In yoga class. We practice these simple pranayama techniques that women can come back to in real moments of stress or overwhelm or anxiety or disconnection because there's such a huge difference between knowing that breathing helps us and actually learning how to use our breath as a tool to help us come back home to ourselves. Now, another thing that I've learned over the years is that you can't outthink a body or a mind that are physically and mentally exhausted. A lot of us are so skilled at analyzing ourselves. I'm raising my hand here. We journal about things, we talk ourselves through things, we explain away what we're feeling, and ultimately we convince ourselves that we're fine because other people have it harder than we do. But meanwhile, our bodies and our minds are still trying to carry all of it. And so, one of the practices that we do inside Radiantly Rooted is something called a body check in. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You sit quietly for a few minutes and you honestly notice what's happening inside of you. So, this builds on the embodiment practices of connecting to your breath. Where do you feel tight? Where do you feel disconnected? Where are you holding on or clenching without even realizing it? And the important part here is to notice that we're not trying to fix any of it, right? For those of us who are used to solving problems quickly, that can feel surprisingly uncomfortable at first. But learning how to notice yourself without immediately overriding yourself starts rebuilding trust with your body over time. Now, in yoga philosophy, this practice is called svadhyaya, or self study. And it's not about studying yourself so you can criticize yourself more effectively. No, it's about building honest awareness, learning how to observe yourself with compassion instead of constantly pushing yourself past your limits. And I think many women have spent years disconnecting from their own inner voice, their own inner signals, their body signals, because they had to keep functioning. But here's the thing, eventually our body starts asking for our attention anyway. Sometimes that might look like tension headaches or trouble sleeping. Sometimes it's feeling overstimulated by small things that normally wouldn't even bother you. And other times it's realizing that you haven't felt fully present in your own life for a really long time. I remember there was this one season of my life where I just felt so mentally overloaded that even small decisions felt impossible. Somebody would ask me a question. It was a simple question, and I could just feel my body reacting like it was one more demand that I didn't have the capacity for. And for me, that was a huge wake up call because I realized how disconnected I had become from what my body had been trying to communicate with me for a while now. And I know I'm not the only one of us that has experienced that. So, one question that I've gotten in the habit of asking myself regularly is this: is any of this coming back to me? And I'm not talking about selfishly, but honestly, because for a really long time, a lot of my energy flowed outwards into work, into responsibilities and relationships, caring for other people and things, and just trying to keep everything running smoothly. But eventually, what I realized was that I had created a life where I was constantly pouring energy out without giving myself much space to fill it back up, to replenish it. And so in yoga, we come back again to this idea of prana, that energy that's meant to move and circulate. Energy isn't designed to move in one direction forever. There has to be restoration too. Joy and stillness also have a space. Otherwise, you wake up one day feeling so disconnected from yourself and you can't fully explain how you got there. And so, this question, is any of this coming back to me, has helped me to notice that feeling earlier now. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes I can genuinely say this season feels nourishing and aligned and supportive. But sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes I realize that I've been running on autopilot again and ignoring the things that help me to feel like myself. Both of those answers are really helpful because awareness is where we always start. Awareness allows us the opportunity to change the way that we choose to move through our lives. And so tonight, before you go to bed, maybe that is a question that you let yourself sit with for a moment. What gave something back to you today? And if the answer feels small or non-existent, that's okay. You have that awareness so you can choose to make tomorrow different. Maybe you took a walk outside. Maybe you had a conversation with somebody that made you feel understood. Maybe you just took a few quiet minutes in your car before you walked into the house. All of those small things, all of those moments count. And if you're listening to this thinking, but I've tried the yoga before, Rachel, and I've tried slowing down before, I've tried all the wellness things, and I still end up in the same place. I completely understand that too. A lot of wellness advice unintentionally turns self-care into just one more thing that we're supposed to do perfectly. Another routine, another habit, another standard to measure ourselves against. And that's not what this work is about for me. The ancient teachers said it this way: yoga is a journey of the self, through the self, to the self. It's not a destination, but a return, a pathway home to the core of who we are. And so what I found, at least in my own experience, is that this work is really about learning to hear yourself again, to tune into that inner voice, not only to tune into it, but to trust it, to give it voice. And that's why inside Radiantly Rooted, we focus so much on embodiment, not on perfection. There's breath work, movement, somatic practices, and self-study. Live embodiment sessions with other women who are learning how to reconnect with themselves in sustainable ways. Because one of the most healing things in the world is realizing that you're not the only one feeling this way. And if this episode resonated with you, I would genuinely love to hear what part you connected with the most. You can leave a comment or share this episode with somebody who's been caring a lot lately too. Doors to Radiantly Rooted open May 18th, and you can learn more at rachelhupp.com/radiantly rooted. Thanks so much. I'm so glad you're here, and I'll see you next week for a brand new episode of Radiantly Rooted with Rachel. Thanks for listening to Radiantly Rooted with Rachel. If this episode brought you a little more clarity, grounding, or inspiration, I'd love it if you shared it with a friend or left a quick review. It really helps more women find this space and feel supported on their own paths. And if you are craving more soulful support, head on over to rachelhupp.com to join my email list. That's where I send free resources, gentle guidance, and invitations to go deeper. Until next time, trust yourself and root in to what matters. Because the life you want, it starts by coming back home to you.